All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Hopefully we'll get a few other people, but we're glad you're here. And with a small group, we can talk about exactly what you want to talk about. So we have a couple of things. Excuse me, allergies. We are recording this. Just first, let me remind people of that to share with presidents who are unable to be on the call. We have a couple of topics that people did send back to me that we can talk about. And then, of course, we can talk about whatever is going on, what's on your mind, any questions that you have for each other, et cetera. Is about investments in this economic environment. And the chapter is looking at investments in the board. The board is divided on how to manage that. So is anybody looking to make investments and want to share what their process has been or strategy? Obviously, strategy should not be all on red in Vegas.
So Crystal, I was the one that brought up the question, and of course the dogs are going to start barking.
No problem.
But we have a little situation that might just shed a little light. We had some investing that we did about 3 years ago, and it does have a potential for risk of principal. And we were up a good amount, and we're seeing it down a little bit. We tell boards not to do this, associations. So we have 2/3 of the board. Obviously, everybody knows an investment should hang on for like 10 years, but we really, just like that last conversation, not having enough money to do increases. I'm looking at every penny going, we should protect this now, take it out and put it in something secure. And the majority agree, but we have a few that are saying to let it stay and that we should be keeping it for about 10 years. I'm just curious, as a board, what everybody, or if you've had conversations with your boards about anything that could potentially be risking principal and what your thoughts are on it. Feel free to be blunt too.
Yeah, so I have some thoughts on that. And I think, Nicole, when you started out saying we would not advise our homeowner boards to invest in anything that could hurt the principal investment. And I would have to stay the course on that philosophy. However, you're already now invested in something, and if it's not doing well right now, riding it out might in fact be a better plan than pulling it when you're at a loss. So I guess someone with a stronger financial investment background might be the person to advise on that one particular thing. But just across the board, my thought would be never to invest those funds in anything that could lose the principal.
Yeah, at the moment it's only down about maybe $100. So it's not down much, but we were up about 12. So since January, we've been down about $12,000. So, yeah. But we're right at that principal line. And this is where I say let's invest in something for 6 to 12 months, protected. Yeah. And then from there we can invest. But I just wasn't sure if other chapters are even doing anything kind of, down that same line and that line of reason. I'm right there with you. If we were down a lot, like if we hadn't been paying attention or if it tanked on us, I'd agree 100% to let it ride. But since we're at that line, it's so critical.
Nicole, I'm sure, Tony or you have done this, but I want everybody to be aware too. It does talk about investments in your bylaws. So make sure as you're looking at that you're following the basic principles that are in there. Yeah. But this is a good discussion to have. Any other thoughts on that from anyone? Anybody else looking at their investments? I'm sure, there was riding a high there for a while and then things started to go south a little bit. Okay. What else would you guys like to talk about today? Congratulations to many of you who are award-winning chapters, and we'll get your awards at a conference in May. Very excited. We had quite a bit of diversity in chapters submitting awards this year, which is great. So we're excited to congratulate all of those chapters. I believe that list was in the last chapter weekly email, and it's also posted on our website.
I have a question about that.
Sure, go ahead, Gina.
I won't be able to be at conference, so the president-elect is going to be there, and he said that he would go up and accept. Should it be him or should it be the ED?
It can be both. We have many chapters that do both. That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. Okay.
And just piggybacking on that, any of you that are attending conference, I know I've seen a couple of your names on the registration list. Don't forget, we have the Leadership Lounge both Thursday and Friday. We've sent that out to you. If you don't have it and you're attending, please let myself or one of the chapter relations teams know. We've got different little conversations going on. Last year, per this call, it was recommended that we do like a little social for all of you to network together. So we're doing an ice cream social again on Thursday for this group in the room. But just to notify you guys too, we're going to be on the second level. So we'll have signage and everything throughout that. But in case you're looking for us, we're up on the second floor in there. But just wanted to kind of plug that to hope that you guys all come and see and relax, and we'll have charging stations and things like that there for you as well.
Yeah, and we've got some really good conversations planned for that space. So if you're able to, we encourage you to come by. Okay. How many of you on this call, I know as presidents, it's not a requirement, it's a requirement for the president-elect, but how many of you as presidents will be attending, just by a show of hands? Okay, good. About half of you. Nice. All right. Nicole, you took yourself off mute, I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just gonna say, I'm coming. I just don't have my
Camera on because you're on vacation.
I don't want to scare you guys today. I'm
Never,
doing
Kelly.
housework. Vacation, I'm doing a staycation.
Yep. Good for you. Good for you. All right. Nicole, I thought I saw you take yourself off mute. Did you have something you wanted to ask or say?
Yeah, I'm always full of questions. I was curious how everybody's chapter works directly with their LAC, for any that have them, because we've been struggling with our LAC not wanting to do fundraising, but and then my ED is not loving my LAC at the moment, so there's tension. So I'm just curious what everybody's doing.
Everybody on this call has a LAC, Nicole, for sure. So and as I'm looking around the room, I think there's varying relationships there. So I saw some head nods. So if anybody wants to jump in and share how their chapters work with the LAC, that would be awesome.
We just write a check to our lobbyist. They don't do any fundraising either. We just pay the $40,000 a year. I think we get a contribution from National. I don't know how much that is, but there is a slight contribution from National, but they do not do any fundraising. We use our annual partnership money for that.
Same thing here.
Is that a decision that the chapters just made one day, that it wasn't worth?
There's been historical attempts to try to get like a $1 per door campaign, those types of things. They've all failed. So we just decided we have plenty of sponsorship. So we just elected to pay it and not do any fundraising efforts. It doesn't mean that we won't evaluate that again in the future, but currently we're just paying it, and we have a lot of legislative stuff going on right now. So they're certainly earning their money.
Got it.
So
yesterday we had a luncheon. Sorry. We had a luncheon, and so we had some sponsors, and we had like a little getaway package for them, and we had our LAC people there pushing raffles, and that went over well, especially because I feel like we were at a luncheon where a lot of people that don't normally come out came out.
Good. Okay, so incorporating it into a chapter event.
So we do the Buckador program, which is kind of hit or miss, to be honest, as far as successful, but we do a CLAC update at every lunch, or our legislation is California Legislation Action Committee. So we call it CLAC. So we do an update at every luncheon, and we actually have a $2 fee for every education luncheon we have that goes towards CLAC. You can opt out of it if you want to, but nobody really does. We just put it on there. And then we try and do 2 events a year. We do what we call Corks for, again, ours is CLAC, so you can do Corks for LAC or whatever your acronym is. So it's a wine tasting with silent auction, and then we have a couple big auction items that we do like a live auction. And then we have, because we're out in the desert here by the polo grounds, we try and do a polo event, which we incorporate. Or if we want to get away in the summer, we used to do, and we've done it 2 years ago. We haven't done it since COVID, but go down to one of the racetracks and do a day at the races, and that's a fundraiser sponsorship. So we try and have one event where most of the proceeds, if not all of it, goes to the LAC. So it kind of helps with the fundraising part. Because we don't have the ability just to write the check. We don't have that that kind of funds. That would be nice, but it's nice to do the events. And I mean, the main reason to do it is to raise awareness as well and get people involved. So that helps really as well as generating the revenue.
Another thing that's interesting for those not in California, and I don't think we have anybody from Florida on here, but California has 8 chapters. So they split the fundraising among the 8 chapters, which makes, of course, their lobby is probably one of the most expensive in the country because it's California. However, splitting it among 8 chapters sometimes is obviously more palatable than just one, like you have, Nicole, and some of, Sean and Trisha, and well, no, Jeff, you have 2. So just as an FYI, I wanted to make you all aware of that. And Jeff, you came off mute. Did you want to add something?
Well, yeah, in Colorado, yes, we do have 2 chapters that contribute to our LAC financially, but the LAC is actually in the last few years, I've been on the LAC, and we developed a friends and fundraising committee because we've needed we need a collective of folks to be able to testify at the legislature when things are going through committee. But in addition, just to help raise money because the cost of lobbyists had been going up so heavily, although they did find a new lobbyist this past year that helped on budget. But our LAC has been doing, and our chapters both advertise on the events calendars, trivia. There's a fall and a spring one sponsored by RMC and one by our Southern Colorado chapter, as well as a late summer, right after Labor Day, golf tournament has been added by our LAC that both chapters try and support and get people out to that golf tournament. So those have really helped at least keep our LAC funded and keep the lobbyists going.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
Crystal,
Yes.
we had a fun one that was just suggested by our committee that we're hoping to do in August. It's called Kahoot for Loot. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Kahoot, but it's a online trivia. It's a trivia application that works with Zoom. So the idea was to have an entrance fee of $75, and that's a all you can play entrance fee. And there's lots of sponsorship opportunities as well. So that's kind of a fun one to do, and we can do it virtually. And we can do it during happy hour, like 4 to 6. So that's I just like saying Kahoot for Loot too. So it's a fun one.
I know, I was like, what? That's awesome. I like that. That's fun.
It's KAHOOT. Yeah, KAHOOT.
Yep.
Kahoot for Loot.
Kahoot for Loot. Trisha, how is South Carolina with their LAC? Oh, you went on mute. There you go.
Sorry. I don't know as much about that as I should. I'm not aware that we have a lobbyist, so we're not out of pocket any huge amount of funding. What I do know is that I don't hear as much as I would like to hear. So that is something that I've asked that we get more reporting, and even if there's not much going on, and I don't know how much you all know about South Carolina, but we are pretty unregulated and not real happy for regulation. So there's probably not a whole lot going on, but it is nice to get reports back and just kind of generally know a little bit about what that group's doing.
Absolutely. How many of you do you get regular reports, like I know some of you mentioned luncheons, but like for the board meetings, do you guys get regular reports from your LAC representative? Okay, I see a lot of head nodding.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything,
Good.
Yeah.
we have liaisons that come back with the report every board meeting.
Yeah, that's a good practice. And I would make sure at the minimum, Trisha, I would ask if you could be copied on the minutes or sent the minutes, so at least you have an idea of what's going on. Depending on how legal-minded you are, you know, some presidents are very interested in, you know, knowing what's going on, and some it's kind of challenging if you don't have the interest or knowledge.
Yeah. So in South Carolina, in the last year or so, they did pass some very mild legislation that we all found to be very acceptable. So since that has taken place, I don't foresee anything significant coming down the pike. So I've not heard anything significant, but I do have a pretty strong interest in it. In our state, we also get reported to the Human Affairs Division. Does that happen everywhere, or is that just sort of a statewide thing?
I think it's state. I don't know of any other.
Yeah, so we've got this program where if you've got a complaint against your homeowner association or management company, you can report it to the South Carolina Department of Human Affairs. They have no authority to act on it. There's nothing they can do about it, but they do reach out and let you know if a complaint is lodged, ask if you have a way to mediate the situation, and just, I think what they're doing is just gathering data so that they can, if there's something that rises to the top, then they'll start pushing that legislation through. So we do kind of look at those statistics as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of states that have like mediation type, but not a ton that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah.
Anybody else on the call have any kind of mediation through the state or complaint type?
Colorado has the HOA information officer, which is just, again, a reporting mechanism that reports to our legislators to tell them how many complaints. But even with the complaints steadily going down every year for the last couple of years since licensing went away in Colorado, for some reason our legislators feel we need more regulation this year. So it's been fun.
Wow, that's interesting, Jeff. I mean, that, you know, you would think, oh, complaints are going down, everything's, you know, a little bit better.
I think the net result of the 2021 report was 1/100% of the total population that belongs or lives within HOAs had a complaint, and yet that was enough where licensing was a bill that was on the table this year. It was PI'd or postponed indefinitely because we pointed out a lot of problems with it. That we have some legislators in Colorado that are really thinking regulation is the fix for everything.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yes.
You guys have a strong LAC though, so I'm sure they will continue to help manage that the best they can.
They are doing that. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but our legislature is looking. We had 2 communities in the state that had a rash of foreclosures once the ban on foreclosures was lifted, and all of a sudden that's making the news that HOAs are taking homes away from these poor folks. And so our LAC is fighting that right now, where basically it would take away the HOA's right to foreclose.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff. Other questions or topics you all want to chat about today? Gonna make me keep talking? See, we already talked about conference. That's what's on our mind here so much.
I have
Nicole?
another random one. As I said, I'm
Random
full
is
of them.
good. I love it. I
So
love
this
it.
will take us down a totally different route. But what is everybody's feeling on the axe throwing events and the and clay shoots? We know they can be really profitable events. Everybody seems to want to do them, and for some reason, we can never get them to a point of approval. But I've attended them at in other organizations, and they're always a blast, and they're well done, and they make money. But I'm curious of everybody's thoughts on them. It's a liability. Obviously, people are concerned about the liability, so that's
liability.
where it comes. Yeah.
But you're
Deb,
doing
you
it with
guys-
you're doing it with a company though. I mean, a place that insures. You're not just grabbing shotguns and,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, you would think the liability would fall on the service provider. I wouldn't have thought about being concerned about.
And I think there's with the guns, there's a mixed message, which I think is funny because you can not to be weird, but you could hurt somebody seriously with a golf club too if you wanted to. So we
Sure.
could be we could really get nitty gritty with anything. But yeah, they're afraid of putting out the wrong message about guns, and I don't know how to talk around that.
Well, go back to the axes then. There you go. We'll start there.
You need them to cut wood.
Thanks, Gina. Well, I know, Jeff, you guys did it in Colorado, right?
Yeah, our clay shoot is probably our number 2 or 3 best attended social event. And not everybody enjoys it, but we don't get complaints that, hey, why are you holding this event? So those who don't feel comfortable around guns just don't attend. I don't know. That's just the logic that works out here.
And that's going to be different everywhere, I feel like, depending on the population. The axe throwing, yeah, that's very popular too. Anybody who's done the axe throwing with a CAI chapter?
Illinois just did one last week, actually, and they had decent success with it. Again, it was a local place and stuff. So if you're worried about, insurance or things like that, it might be good to reach out to the Illinois chapter and kind of see how they worked through that progress with it. But it was very successful. They've got pictures up on their Facebook page and stuff if you want to check it out.
Nicole, we have found riders to be pretty inexpensive for events. Whatever rider you choose for insurance, but the event carries the primary, and then you're just kind of carrying the secondary insurance, and so it's usually not that expensive.
And you may also, I don't know if this probably won't help with how people may feel about guns, but you may want to check with your insurance provider and to see what they have to say about those events. Because they may be able to give you some feeling of less liability or more liability. So, you never know.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, Crystal. And then also I know when I went axe throwing once, and we had to fill out some sort of form, which was boilerplate, and I assume it was assumption of the risk. And as a lawyer, I decided not to even read it, but I went ahead and checked the box.
Good for you,
on my
Ida.
iPhone. But so I imagine there is, those waivers that you have to do with the venue. But checking with the insurance provider is a good way, because they can sort of, I think, guide that conversation.
Thank you. Terry, it looks like you came off mute. Are you there?
Oh, yes. I have a question about copyright law.
Oh, okay.
We just recently had an event where we were actually in production of our newsletter for April, and I was reading the proof, and at the same time I happened to get another local magazine in the building industry that had the same exact article and word for word and same pictures, and that particular magazine is copyrighted. We don't copyright our magazine, and I was wondering what I decided to pull the article because I felt I didn't want to expose us to potential liability. I mean, I don't know that someone would sue us, but I didn't want to, it's a litigious society. So I didn't really want to expose us to that possibility. But I was just wondering how how you deal with your publications, and do you copyright your publications, and do you have your authors sign something saying that they have not submitted it to another publication, that it is original material? Now, I had 2 articles that were published before, but we went to the publisher and got permission, and we acknowledged that in the publication. But
Yeah, that was going to be my first recommendation, Terry. So I'm glad to hear that.
yeah. So, but I mean, I was just really alarmed that these people just sort of shotgun out their articles and didn't have the courtesy to tell us that it was being printed, being published. And I was just curious to see how everybody else deals with that. Because I was really, upset about it, but some board members who are attorneys too, didn't seem that concerned, but maybe that's not their area of expertise, so they don't really care. But I care, and I don't want to have that exposure to our chapter.
It's a great question. Anyone want to comment on how they handle their magazine, or any other publication with copyright issues?
I don't know a lot about our magazine, but I just know that we use the same articles as a company for first service. And I know a lot of vendors do as well, that they will write an article and they will publish it in multiple different sources. They just do that because they don't want to write new copy all the time, especially if the subject matter is typically the same. So I don't know if that helps at all, but we do it.
It depends on it. Yeah, it depends on if the magazine's copyrighted and that sort of thing.
Yeah, are your magazines copyrighted, or?
I don't know if the Minnesota one is. I was just making a statement regarding what we do as a company. We will utilize the same article in multiple locations. But that would be more for our North Region marketing team to determine if it's all copyrighted or not.
Yeah. Terry, from my knowledge, if I had to guess, I would say probably half of the chapters have copyrights on their magazine. And some of them have trademarks as well, like on the name. I think it is an issue that not everybody realizes could become an issue. I haven't heard it so much on the article front, but I have heard it on the images that, people pulling stuff down from a website and using it, and somebody coming after them for payment. We've definitely had that in chapters with a wide range of requests for money on those. So, but it doesn't look like anybody else has any experience. It might be a question to ask some of the executive directors that do the publishing, or putting it out, as Kelly suggested earlier, on the chapter president's group on Exchange, to see if anybody has any insight.
Now, what is the for the national magazine? Can we reproduce any of that in our what is the policy?
You can reproduce. We do ask for attribution in there. For Common Ground, we do have a form to fill out, depending on what the source, where it came from. You may or may not have to have, explicit permission. Anything from any of our blogs or anything like that can be reproduced. But if you're going for Common Ground or like community manager reprints, I believe there's something in the front cover that tells you how to contact for copyright requests.
And we did a little webinar that's recorded, and I'll drop it in the chat, the link to that, about how to use our different publications within the chapters.
So remember that.
So yeah, so I'll include that with that too. And then also, I also want to plug your CEDs and chapter staff have access to our Media Valet platform, which has images that are copyrighted to CAI. for us to use. So if you are looking for images and you don't want to worry about, that copyright piece of it, we do have some that we've specially done just for us that are all within that system.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay. Other topics or questions? Kelly just dropped that link in the chat for the session on how to use our materials.
And also check out our toolkit. So when you log into our national website, if you go over to chapters, the chapters tab, you'll have access to our toolkit, and we have a link to this video there and additional resources and our other training video links as well that we've done too, in case you want to take a look at some of the other things.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments today? Okay. If not, we'll let Kelly get back to her vacation.
Looking forward to seeing most of you at the conference.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to it. Please do come by the lounge, not just for ice cream, but for some of the education as well. Okay?
Looking
Great.
forward to it, Crystal. Thanks.
Very much so. All right, we'll see you there.
Thank you, everybody.
All.
Everybody.
Take care. Bye.